Understanding Hidden Intentions: How Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho Explores Sigmund Freud's Psychoanalytical Theory. Throughout its evolution, entertainment has displayed various depictions of good and bad ideologies, although some are exaggerated for dramatic effect. Additionally, cinematic storytelling rarely considers the complex reasons as to why an individual performs irrational acts, and falsely labels them as evil. In the case of English filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock, however, he approaches his characters with a sense of empathy, and strives to include authenticity in displaying an individual who is ravaged by beastly desires, yet still condemns their heinous acts by including consequences. It is worth noting here that certain psychological elements found with the storytelling structure of Hitchcock's filmography correlates with the scientific findings of neurologist Sigmund Freud, whose compelling research about psychoanalytical theory reflects the hidden intentions of the filmmaker's characters, especially that of Norman Bates in Psycho. Ultimately, Alfred Hitchcock's 1959 film Psycho explores Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical theory, and this notion is supported by the following areas: the filmmaker's cinematic interpretation of turning elements of scientific theory into spectacle, how the background of both figures signifies a connection between theory and film, and a significant impact that cinematic language has on the film's themes of identity and vulnerability. Initially, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho explores Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical theory through a unique translation of turning perplexing concepts into vivid emotions that evoke irrational thought. It is worth noting how the aesthetic of his film emphasizes the murkiness that is created when good and bad blend together, especially when it comes to the presentation of characters. The utilization of a black and white color palette, along with the manipulation of light in creating harsh shadows, reflects the moral dilemmas that Marion Crane, Lilia Crane, and Sam Loomis experience when they are thrown into the same chaotic state of anxiety that the central antagonist Norman Bates feels towards his dark inhibitions. Additionally, Hitchcock's choice to focus on the political ideology of individualism becoming tainted is shared with that of Freud, and this belief is expressed on the filmmaker's end through the loss of cohesion that Norman feels about his identity, which leads him to become envious about others who appear to be whole. On top of that, the narrative of Psycho is displayed in a linear manner, although the film's open-ended conclusion of Norman's actual fate can be connected to both Hitchcock and Freud's belief that those who suffer from mental illness will continue to suffer, and continue to be unaware of the harm that they brought into others, thus feeling a small misguided sense of satisfaction. Ultimately, according to an insightful 2010 article titled "We All Go a Little Mad Sometimes: Alfred Hitchcock, American Psychoanalysis and the Construction of Cold War Psychopath," author Robert Genter emphasizes the notion of Norman Bates' psychopathic disorder stemming from areas that affected him both personally and externally. Hitchcock stresses Norman's violent oscillation in sentiment, especially his sympathetic advice to Miriam, which regresses into a vociferous outburst at her words about his mother. And this excerpt signifies how an abstract concept from psychoanalytical theory, such as Freud's Oedipus complex, can be most effective through Hitchcock's use of the conventions of cinema. Secondly, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho explores Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical theory in a manner that refers to how each figure's work is influenced by the environments that they were in, and how the conditions that existed amongst them possessed a trait that could be shared equally. It's worth noting here that Freud and Hitchcock's historical background, that being the late 19th and early 20th centuries, ignored or misunderstood the woes of those who struggled with complexities that affected their rational thinking. Their social background reflected immense prejudice and a misunderstanding towards proposed ideas of psychiatric evaluation and mental illness, and their cultural backgrounds were hidden beneath a mask of ignorance that faltered at concealing innocence from the hidden corruption within a community. Additionally, these areas shaped the way in which Freud conducted his studies. Hitchcock, on the other hand, took inspiration from the injustice he saw present within society, along with referring to some of Freud's concepts, and applied it to the looming negligence that exists within his film Psycho. On top of that, Freud's psychoanalytical theory has impacted Hitchcock's Psycho in a manner that has not only garnered public attention towards the field of mental health, but also has made both Freud studies and the film much more relevant to those living in the 21st century. According to an insightful 2009 article titled "Hitchcock's Conscious Use of Freud's Unconscious," author Konstantin Sandis emphasizes how Alfred Hitchcock's relationship with Sigmund Freud's concepts is displayed through his film Psycho, in a manner that comments on the hypocrisy of society's neglect for those who are mentally ill. Psycho is said to succeed because the Bates motivation is not put forward as a serious hypothesis, but instead as something humorous and at best only partially plausible. Furthermore, according to an informative 2023 article titled "Morbid Characters: An Interpretation of Hitchcock Film Characters with Freudian Theory," author Danhui Chin provides insight into the psychological childhood trauma that Norman holds within himself, and due to it being left untreated, caused his inhibitions become darker and looser. The frustrations of childhood may cause people to have an emotional disorder and a morbid mood, then change their destiny. Lastly, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho explores Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical theory in an expression of manipulating the numerous conventions of cinematic storytelling as a way for viewers to experience the tumultuous emotions that are felt by the characters, along with inhabiting their point of view. It is worth noting here that some of the technical elements used in the film were considered by Hitchcock and cinematographer John L. Russell in manipulating a shift of power that not only displays who holds control in a scene, but also in crafting a feeling that the filmic world is out of balance, which reflects the skewed viewpoint of Norman Bates. Additionally, the changes in point of view, along with the use of close-up shots and a deep depth of field, influences an audience's psychological perception of what is happening on screen, and their original omniscient point of view becomes subjective during a moment of heightened suspense. An example would be Marion being murdered in the shower by Norman. According to a 2022 film studies textbook titled Cinema Studies, The Key Concept, 6th edition, Professor Susan Hayward emphasizes how subjectivity within a story can open up the borders of a traditional narrative structure, and that the accompany of technical elements stemming from cinematic language can make complex mental processes possible to depict visually. Similarly, point of view shots affect the spectator-text relation, whereby the spectator feels positioned alongside the character's subjectivity and so identifies with that character. On top of that, according to a 2011 film analysis textbook titled Understanding Film Theory, authors Ruth Dowdy and Christine Etherington Wright provide insight into how the psychoanalytical theory of the Oedipus complex emphasizes the themes of identity and vulnerability in the film. In Psycho, Norman Bates kills his mother's intended husband because he sees him as a rival for his mother's attention. He then kills the mother who has mentally dominated him. Ultimately, theory is reinforced by the magic of film. Overall, Alfred Hitchcock's 1959 film Psycho explores Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical theory, and this notion is supported by the following areas: filmmaker's cinematic interpretation of turning elements of scientific theory into spectacle, how the background of both figures signifies a connection between theory and film, and the significant impact that cinematic language has on the film's themes of identity and vulnerability. Additionally, each area correlates with each other in presenting an understanding as to why a specific similarity exists between the two mediums. On top of that, Freud and Hitchcock both possess tendencies to see through the false benign mask that society wears upon its face and addresses its role in overlooking those who are forced to battle their own demons on their own, while slowly becoming one in the process. It is worth noting here that the case of Norman Bates in Psycho serves as one of the most striking references of psychoanalytical theory being applied to characters in film, and thus this presents a new area of study in which the arts and sciences combine. Ultimately, this study has allowed for both film and psychoanalysis to create new ways of thinking about the issue of overlooking mental health and illness that still plagues society to this day. And this is my bibliography. Thank you for listening to my video essay, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.